These are a couple of problems in your Google Forms that I'm doing just as review. Remember, if you still aren't getting this, go back and watch the notes from Thursday. Sometimes hearing it again in a different way might help you out. Okay, so you can add these to your notes if you want to. You don't have to. This is just for those that maybe need to hear it again to get started for this week. Okay, the Google Forms are due today. So when you get done with this, I will have done 4 of them for you. Get the other ones done and hand it in and get started on the try it. The try it is due tomorrow at the beginning of class, and we will grade it and ask questions before the quiz. Okay, so this is number 19 on the first one, okay, and we're looking at this equation. Okay, so we already learned that in this equation, because there's a negative, we know that the parabolas are going to be downright, which all of these graphs have the downright. So we need to go through the quadratic formula to figure out which one is the proper one. Okay, so I'm going to show you over here. So remember, when we used the quadratic equation, it was a negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4 times a times c, and all of that is over 2 times a. Okay, well, in order to find out what our a and our b and our c are, that is in the equation where you have ax squared, this was in your notes, plus bx plus c. So we're looking for the numbers that are in front of the x squared, the number that's in front of the x, and then the number that's by itself to plug into that equation. Okay, so looking at this equation, my a is right there. So my a is a negative 3, my b is 1, and my c is 2. Okay, so now we're going to go over and we're going to replace all of these letters that are in this equation with those numbers and simplify this down. Okay, so it's a negative b, so my b is 1, so I'm going to put a negative 1. Okay, then I have my plus and my minus. Okay, then I have 1 that I'm going to square, minus 4 times a, and my a was a negative 3, and my c is 2. Okay, and then all of that is over 2 times a. Well, my a was a negative 3, so 2 times negative 3 is going to make it a negative 6. Okay, so the first part in simplifying this down is to take care of this part first. So I'm going to negative 4 times a negative 3 would be a positive 12. And then a positive 12 times 2 makes it 24. Okay, so all of this right here changes to a positive 24. Okay, now looking at 1 squared, so squaring 1 times 1 is 1. Okay, so this is where I'm at right now. So underneath the radical, I have 1 plus 24. Okay, and all of that's over a negative 6. Okay, well, 1 plus 24 actually is 25. And 25 happens to be a perfect square, which is 5, right? Square root of 5. 25 is 5. So this is what I have right now. So I have a negative 1 plus or minus, perfect square 25 is 5 over a negative 6. Okay, so we're going to go through and we're going to solve it with a plus and solve it with a minus and divide by 6 for each of them to find out what my 2 values of x are. Okay, so if I go a negative 1 plus 5, that would give me 4. Okay, so I have 4 over a negative 6. Okay, so simplifying that down, 4 over a negative 6 would be a negative 2/3. Okay, now we're going to do it now with the minus. So I'm going to negative 1 minus 5, which would be a negative 6 over a negative 6. Well, negative 6 over negative 6 is going to give me a positive 1. Okay, so what that has taught me is when I go to graph it, it's the 2 spots that's going to cross on the x-axis. Okay, so I have a negative 2/3. So a negative 2/3 isn't quite at a negative 1, okay, but it's in that direction. So, and again, we're just doing close, approximate things, okay? And then my other one is a positive 1. Well, a positive 1 is on this side, and so my dot, oops, get the color so you can see it. My dot's going to be right there. Okay, looking back at the parabola, okay, the parabola that we have has a negative in front, and so when it's a negative, it means that it's going to be an upside down parabola when we do it. Okay, so right now I have my 2 spots that are these spots right here. I'm trying to find out what my vertex is. Okay, so I know my vertex should be up in this area someplace up here. Okay, I just don't know where. So we're solving now for the vertex. Okay, well, the first part of that in your notes was it was supposed to be the negative b over 2a. Well, we already did that, so you're just looking right here. Okay, that's your negative b over 2a. We've already done that, so that part's been done for us. So a negative over negative is going to be a positive. Okay, so it's a positive 1/6. Okay, then from there, now we're taking that positive 1/6 and we're going to plug it back into our original equation up here. So wherever there's an x, you're going to plug that in. Okay, I'm use a little bit different color. Sorry for all the color. I just want you to keep track of the screen if you're watching it. Okay, when I plug that back in, I'm going to have a negative 3. Okay, I have an x, and I know that the x is 1/6 right now. Okay, and I square that, plus plugging in my x, which is 1/6 again. Okay, and then plus 2. Okay, so we're simplifying this down, which your calculator should help you with this. I'm going to leave it in fraction format. If you want to convert it, that is fine, I guess, because again, we're not like graphing exact. We're going to get to something close. Okay, so when I square 1/6, it's 1 times 1, which is 1, and 6 times 6, which is 36. Okay, that I'm going to multiply by a negative 3. So I have a negative 3 over 36. Okay, so now the next part is a positive 1/6. Well, I'm working with fractions, so I want to have a common denominator, so I'm going to go times 6 times 6. Okay, so this is a positive 6 over 36. Okay, again, you can have decimals if you want to. Okay, and then I have a plus 2. Well, I want to have a common denominator, right? So that's over 1, so I go times 6. And times 6. Go back to positive. Okay, sorry. Somebody came in when I was recording. It just messed me up. Okay, I want 36. So I need to multiply this by 36 down here, not 6. Okay, so 2 times 6. Okay, multiplying, I did it again. 2 times 36. Sorry, whatever you multiply the bottom by, you're going to multiply the top by. So 2 times 36 is going to give you 72 over 36. Okay, so because I chose fractions, all my common denominators are there. So now I'm just going across the top, a negative 3 plus 6 plus 72, and that's over 36. Okay, so when I combine all my numerators, it gives me 75. Sorry, that's not 5. Oh, 75 over 36. Okay, so when you go 75 divided by 36, it ends up giving you, and again, remember when we did it in the notes, we just went 1 or 2 spots. So it's 2.0833. We're just going to go 2.08. Okay, which is super duper close to 2. Okay, so this is my vertex. These were my x's. I've already plotted those, so now I'm plotting my vertex. Remember we said it should be someplace up in here, okay, which it is. It's halfway in between and it's going up. So 1/6, okay, is beyond 0, but it's just like right in here, okay, and then I'm going to go up 2. So 1, 2, okay, so this is where my vertex is at. Okay, so now I can sketch what that looks like, okay, connecting and making my parabola. Okay, so now you're going to go back over to the problems that you chose and pick the one that's closest to that. Again, these are those dotted graphs, which is kind of sometimes hard to see where it's at. So you might have to zoom in to look at it. Okay, so you're looking for one that's just a little bit to the right of the y-axis, and it's gone up about 2. Okay, and then picking the one that fits to that one. Okay, so now let's look at number 20. Okay, so number 20, okay, I know it's going to be not a negative slope, it's going to be a positive slope. So I already know that I cannot choose these two because it's going to be upright. It's not a negative slope, okay? So on this one, this is the one where we look for patterns, okay? So remember, when it's not in parentheses and I'm looking at this, this part has to do with a transformation of sliding it, okay? And the sliding is up and down. When it's in parentheses, it's left and right. Okay, so this one is at a negative 3. Okay, so that's the bottom of my vertex. Okay, so we can already narrow this down without doing the rest of the equation. Okay, this one is at a positive 3, and this one is at a negative 3, and that's the one that we want. Okay, so narrowing these down without having to graph it. Okay, now when you go to do it on the try it, that's going to be your starting point. Okay, so our starting point was at a negative 3. And then remember our pattern was up 1 over 1, okay, because we know it's upright. And then we've got that as our second pattern. Okay, when this is in the front, when there's no number in the front, that is our pattern. But now there's a 3 there, so that means I have to times this by 3 and times this by 3. Okay, so I'm going to go over 1, and then I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3. Okay, over 1, up 1, 2, 3. And then this is our graph that we're looking at. Okay, which fits us. So there's your B. So that's from the beginning of the notes that we did. Okay, next one. Oh, that was good, sorry. 21. Okay, so with 21, we know it's going to be a negative slope, okay, because we have the negative that's out in the front. So we've already narrowed it down to these two. So we know it's not going to be any of these two. So now we just need to check the location. It's either going to be a little bit fatter of a U or skinny of a U, okay? So I'm going to, just so we can practice our quadratic equation, put this back together. So if I distribute this, I have x squared, and then I have a 7x, and then a 5x. Well, 7x and 5x give me 12x, and then 7 times 5 gives me 35. Okay, well now I need to distribute the negative 2. So if I do that and distribute it, let me put a new color, I've got a negative 2x squared minus 24x minus 7. Okay, so there's my A, there's my B, and there's my C. Okay, so plugging it into the quadratic equation, and again, you have this in your notes, it's a negative in the equation, but I'm plugging in a negative, so it's going to change it to a positive 24, plus or minus. Okay, then squaring my B, so a negative 24 times a negative 24 is 576. Okay, then it's a negative 4 times A, which is a negative 2, times C, which is a negative 70. Okay, and all of that's over 2 times A. Well, 2 times a negative 2 is going to make it a negative 4. Okay, so if you remember, we do this part first. Okay, well, a negative times a negative is a positive 8. And now I have a positive 8 times a negative 70. Okay, so all of this is going to stay as a negative, but it changes to 560. Okay, so now I have 24 plus or minus. If I subtract these two numbers from each other, I get the square root of 16. Well, the square root of 16 is 4, so I'm going to go ahead and change that right now. Okay, to 4. And then all of that was over a negative 4, and that gave me this. Okay, so now I can solve it and get my two problems. So I'm going to go 24 plus 4. So 24 plus 4 is 28 over a negative 4, which gives me a negative 7. Okay, now I'm going to do it with the minus, so 24 minus 4 gives me 20 over a negative 4. Well, 20 over a negative 4 gives me a negative 5. So these two values are my x's when I go to graph it. Okay, so I'm just going to draw a real small graph because I can't fit all this on here. So I'm going to have something at a negative 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so there's going to be one dot there, and then one of them's at a negative 7. Okay, so it's either going to be an upright U or a downright U. Okay, this one right here tells us it's going to be a downright U. Okay, so if it's going down, then that means that we're not going to have a vertex down here, right? Our vertex is going to be up here because we want it to shift going downright. Okay, so it's not going to be that. Okay, so finding our vertex. That's the next thing we're looking for. So to find our vertex, we get that from the negative b over 2a. Okay, well, our negative b over 2a is right there. And again, if you don't know where to find that, here's your negative b over 2a. If I can find it again. Okay, so it's 24 that's being divided by a negative 4. So that's going to give me a negative 6. Okay, but now I've got to plug it back into my original equation. So I'm plugging in wherever there's negative, I'm going to plug in a negative 6 where there's an x. Okay, so I'm going to write this different color so you're not losing track of me. So I have a negative 2, and then I'm plugging in a negative 6 that I'm squaring, minus 24 times negative 6 minus 70. Okay, well a negative 6 times a negative 6 is a positive 36 that I'm multiplying times a negative 2. So that's going to give me a negative 72. Okay, and then this one's a negative times a negative, which gives me a positive 144. And then minus 70. Okay, so now if you go left to right, negative 72 plus 144 minus 70, it gives you 2. Okay, so this right here is my vertex. Okay, this was where it crossed the x line. We put those dots there, so now I'm putting my vertex. So I'm going to go over 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, remember it was supposed to be in the middle, okay? But now I've got to go up 2. So 1, 2. Okay, so your vertex that you're looking for on that other page should look something similar to that. Okay, obviously a dotted paper still looks a little bit different, but pick it the right one. So that's number 21. Okay, the last one I'm going to go over is the same as what we're doing here, but now we have the inequality. So it's either going to be a solid line or a dashed line. It's going to be shaded above or shaded below. So the one in objective 93 that I'm doing is 28. Okay, again on these, it's kind of hard to tell which ones are the solid and which ones are the dashed, so you will need to zoom in. So when we get down to the end, because we're actually going to do this, this should be a dashed line, right? When we go to shade it, okay, the parabola itself, okay, is going down because it's a negative, which all of these are going down in the graph here. And then when we're looking at this, the y's are bigger, okay? So if the y's are bigger and our parabola is upside down, then we're looking for shading that's going to be on the outside because my y's get bigger as they go this way. So the shading would be on the outside. So I can already eliminate it's not going to be this one, okay? So now we just need to make sure we have it graphed right, okay? So over to my next page, we're going to work through graphing, okay? So here's my A, here's my B, there's my C. Okay, so my equation is a negative b, but it already is negative, right? So it's going to change it to a positive 2, okay, plus or minus, okay, squaring your b, so a negative 2 times a negative 2 is 4, minus 4 times your a, which was a negative 1, times your c, which was a positive 3, and then all of that is over 2 times a, well 2 times negative 1 is a negative 2. Okay, simplify this down first. So a negative times negative is a positive. And then 4 times 1 is 4, times 3 would make it 12. Okay, so all of this became 12. So now I'm going 4 plus 12. Okay, so again, we got a 16. And we learned that the square root of 16. Okay, so all of this became the square root of 16 is 4. And this is over negative 2. Okay, so we're solving for our 2x values. Okay, so 2 plus 4 is 6, and 6 divided by negative 2 is a negative 3. Here's one of our values. Okay, now we're going to go through and do 2 minus 4. Well, 2 minus 4 gives me a negative 2 over a negative 2. Well, a negative over negative is a positive, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. Okay, so what I've just found is where it crosses the x-axis. Okay, so one's at 1, so someplace right there. The other one, oh, sorry, wrong side. 1, we'll say this one right there. And then the other one's at a negative 3, so 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this is my other one. Okay, so these are the 2 spots where it crosses at. So now I need to find the vertex. Okay, so remember our vertex is going to be going down. So that would mean that someplace up here, somewhere, in the middle of those 2 dots that I found is where my vertex is at. Okay, So first part is this part right here. So whatever this became is my x value. Okay. Well, 2 divided by, sorry, the cop. So 2 divided by a -2 is going to give me a -1. Okay, now we're plugging this back into my original equation. Okay, so I had a negative, and I'm plugging in a negative, squaring it, and then plugging in another negative. Okay, so a negative times a negative is a +1, but then I change it back to a -1. Okay, a negative times a negative is going to make that a +2, and then I have +3. Okay, so going left to right, -1 plus 2 plus 3 gives me 4. Okay, so now this is my vertex. I'm going to go graph my vertex, and then we're done. Okay, so I'm going to come over -1, which I knew there was going to be a reason to have that dot, go up 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and now I am graphing a dashed line, because remember this part right here, okay? So it's a dashed line going through it, okay? There's my parabola, but now I've got to shade it. Okay, so the parts, remember we always look to see where the parabola is crossing the x-axis, okay? And the part that's facing the y is bigger. So bigger goes this direction, right? Where smallers go down below. So that means our shading for this is going to be on the outside of the parabola. Okay? So it's dashed, shaded on the outside in that location. So now go back to your multiple choice and find which one that is. Okay. Again, work together. Compare answers. The try it will be due on Tuesday before the lesson comes. Okay. Good rigor.